Our next speaker is Michael Boyer. I've known Michael for quite a while, a long time actually. He is an extremely talented marketer. I first met him, actually the first time I got to work with him is when I asked him to serve with me my governor year as our PR chair, which he gladly accepted, did an outstanding job for the district in that role. He later moved on to the zone position, working as a PR coordinator for the zone, which means that he was working for all of the districts in the Western United States. Michael has a unique perspective growing up in rural Alaska in the 70s and 80s after being adopted into a large white family. He will speak to you about being an ally and how we can help more people be allies. Michael?
Thank you, Wade. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me today. First of all, I want to begin with a personal story of lived experience and allyship. First, I have white privilege. As Wade said, I was adopted into a large white family in Anchorage, Alaska. I'm 53% Norwegian, 18% African, 10% Jewish, among other European nationalities. But outwardly, I appear Black in America. I was raised white with the confident expectations of a white person, with the wealth of a white family. I only had the full realization that I was different after being physically assaulted by Todd Palin and his gang when I was in junior high school in Wasilla, Alaska. It took me years of attacks in the forms of assaults, slashed tires, police harassment, verbal abuse to realize that I would never fit into the white community as other white men do. The first time I traveled to San Luis Obispo was the summer of 2000 for my brother's bachelor party. I lived in Portland at the time, and it was a special trip. I was the youngest. He was my older brother, and I really wanted to have a good time with them. I had just turned 30, and I was there with my brothers and their 10 friends. The first night we were in town, we went to Mother's Tavern right downtown. We walked into the bar. I ordered 3 drinks at the bar. For my brothers and I. Just turned around holding those 2 drinks. I found myself face to face with a Cal Poly rugby player. He was sneering at disgust with me. He swiped his hands across my chest, knocking the drinks into my face, laughing at me. This is my first experience of San Luis Obispo. I've now lived in this area for about 20 years. My very first allies, my brothers and their friends were surrounding this man. He had no idea he was surrounded by everybody, all of my friends. They came to assist me, not because of anger, but because they wanted to support me. My oldest brother convinced the man that he should buy a round of drinks for the group. It worked. He taught me how powerful it was to have white allies. In order for us to be successful in assisting others to be allies to our cause, we must teach people the basics of real American history. Today, so many people I deeply respect have not learned real Black American history. It was systemically erased from our school curriculum. If you didn't learn the actual American history, you don't know that redlining actually happened all over California up until 1980. It has happened all across the country up until 2015, when Wells Fargo was fined $175 million for redlining in Atlanta. You don't know that the emancipation didn't actually happen in 1863. The majority of male slaves were still in slavery into the 1900s, just in a different type of slavery. You don't know you don't know about the Tulsa race riots. You don't know about the 4,000 lynchings that county clerks actually recorded. You don't know about the Tuskegee syphilis study that spanned 40 years with 600 victims. We must teach our kids and adults the real American history and stop teaching what feels good or what follows the current white narrative. This education builds a foundation of allies by teaching them the causes of systemic racism. They can then begin to understand and walk side by side those of us on this call living it every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael, for sharing your experiences and also for educating us. Very moving presentation. Michael talked about having allies, those people that are willing to stand beside somebody that's having trouble, that's in trouble, and that needs help. He also talked about history and the awareness that we have to bring in, including in history, that awareness of injustices. And that is something he's right. We lack that. Oftentimes we see what's good, what's great, what's easy to read, but very seldom do we actually take a look at those injustices done right underneath our noses. We don't look at that. So Michael, thanks for bringing that awareness to us. Very much appreciated. Again, I hope some of you take a look at that, include this on the action plan that you're going to be working with. Our last presenter is a very good friend of mine, Mel Vines. Mel and I have been friends for quite a while. I met Mel through Rotary when I visited his club, See Me Sunrise, where he was doing a project for underprivileged students, giving them the skills in a trade in metal fabrication as a vocational training project. His passion and desire to help others drew us together, and we've been great friends ever since. Mel?
Yes, thank you, Wade. I wanted to just start off by recognizing that we've just heard powerful testimony shared by members of the panel who've expressed pain and racial strife. Thank you. And racial strife. Their reflections centered on painful bouts with hatred, bigotry, or what is symptomatically resulting from the lack of cultural competence. What is cultural competence? And how do you achieve cultural competence is the basis of my presentation. May I have the first slide, please? There's an adage that says, to know others, we must first know ourselves. Next, please. What is cultural competence? Cultural competence is the social skills that enable a person to interact effectively in a culturally diverse environment. In other words, cultural competence is reflected in the way an organization, community, or individual treats its members. Next, please. The goal in achieving cultural competence, in becoming culturally competent, I've listed 3 with one goal at the end for all of you in attendance. 1, to be culturally competent, you have to have a willingness to change previous ideas and stereotypes. 2, having or acquiring skills to understand the context of minorities within a community and how they can be better supported. And 3, gain comfort with racial and cultural difference in a quest to become culturally competent. And as a goal, once you achieve this cultural competence, I like to see you as an active body, actively support the success of one Black person. Just take one Black person and provide success in their lives. Next slide, please. please understand, this isn't something that you need a BA for or a master's degree. Cultural competence can be learned. Next. It starts off by looking at yourself. Be aware of your own cultural deficits. Explore feelings about your own identity and how it affects interactions with others, as well as your beliefs and your interpersonal skills, and your willingness to be open to cultural differences. You want to grow and process discrimination as you encounter it and develop a deeper awareness of social justice. Next. To be culturally competent, you need to become or develop cultural sensitivity. And that basically is becoming a student. In order to achieve that, you should become a student of sociology. Become familiar with backgrounds of ethnic groups with whom you work with. Research literature. Visit the cultural community. Interview key respondents. Become a participant in support. Once you begin to be culturally competent, you need to ask yourself, now that you're becoming more culturally competent, how will you use that awareness? Hal Renninger, a Rotarian, once said, "I cannot look towards the horizon without seeing my backyard first." Very powerful words. So when you gather and grasp cultural competency, you want to value socially working for equity. Ethical, under the basis of ethical principles, that which in this case is to participate in social work and challenge social inequity. Follow that by actively pursuing social change, particularly with and on behalf of vulnerable and oppressed individuals and groups of people. And socially work to focus primarily on issues of poverty, unemployment, discrimination, and other forms of social injustice or inequities. Cultural competence includes working for social equity, actively challenge social inequity in the workplace and in the activities that you do. Pursue social change, particularly on behalf of vulnerable and oppressed individuals and groups. Focus on issues of discrimination, poverty, unemployment, and other social injustice or inequity. Intervene with cultural sensitivity, challenge inequity or injustice, and pursue social change. You have the power, so you empower minorities and marginalized people. Share understanding and advocate for them. The product of being culturally competent is putting what you have learned in action. And tonight, I'm emphasizing, as we heard the term before, mentorship, but active participation in the form of actively support the success of one Black person, regardless of their age. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Thanks for those great words, the direction that you gave us, and all the points that you've made. We talk about cultural incompetence, talk about self-evaluation. You talked about cultural sensitivity. and how those could all change and make the world better if we take a look at each one of those. We have to first start with ourselves and figure out how we could best handle situations like that, how we could best serve those that are not being served. This will create equity for each and every one of us. And that's one area where we have a long way to go. Again, I asked and suggested that you walk in their shoes. You see what they see. Be aware of what's going on. That sensitivity is something that becomes not only a tool, but a gift that you could use to change the world, to change the mindset of those people, because you will become the mentor that each one of these people we're talking about. Well, thank you very much. We are now jumping into question and answer, and Tina is going to be working with me on that one. She's the one that's doing all the heavy lifting. So, Tina, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, we already have some great questions. So if you just open your Q&A box, Wade, you're going to see all of them ready to go there. It's just the open ones. I've typed in as many answers as possible.
Okay. Answers. Okay, well, I see questions. We will wait for the answers. First one is, this is from James Rue. Do you have any suggestions reading to expand a white person's cultural awareness? And Tina, who do we want to give that one to?
I would actually love if every speaker could give one suggestion, because I know they all have one in mind. So we're going to let every speaker do one suggestion.
Great. Thank you very much. Start with the same order that we presented in, if that's okay. So the first one will be Tom.
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Jim, I love you, my father-in-law. I'm going to send you to Dr. Leonard Moore, Moore, University of Texas. I believe University of Texas has a terrific division where they focus on diversity, and Dr. Leonard Moore is a professor at the university. He leads, I think he may even lead their entire African American Studies program, but he does a terrific series of lectures you can find on YouTube about the Black experience. So Google Dr. Leonard Moore. It's a 5, 6, 7-part series about the Black experience, spanning maybe about 250, 300 years. It's academic in style. It's a meat sandwich about the Black experience. Dr. Leonard Moore, Texas.
Thank you, Tom. Vaughn.
I think I don't know the person posing the question where that person currently lives or so, or what they do for a living. But I would imagine that it could just be something as simple as identifying a Black person close to you and get to know them, talk to them, find out about what it is about being Black. You may not know, surprisingly, with all the social unrest, upheaval going on, what I've experienced that a lot of the white friends and counterpart I have, and professionally and otherwise, they just have difficulty just talking to me, or worried about how I would react, and don't even want to talk about the issues. So break that. Go back and say, let me learn. Tell me how you feel. What is it that I can do? Get to know them. So just talking, get to know somebody. You just might change your mind. You just might find a way, get to understand the other side. My mother used to say, if you know somebody, you can better live with. So I would imagine that if you get to talk to somebody, Black, different from you, get to know them, understand what makes them tick, understand where they come from, just might have a different perspective. I have a friend in Santa Barbara. His name is Jeffrey. He doesn't want to.
Vaughn, you have 20 seconds to wrap this up, sir.
Okay. But he took interest in me talking, and he made a trip to Cameroon with me. And I took him to where the slave trade took place, where the slaves boarded the ship. And he changed his life experience. And he started by him just talking.
Thank you, Vaughn. Next, Michael Rizal.
Bon, to piggyback off what you said, your best source is going to be somebody that's close to you. My story has been the most impactful when I opened up and finally shared with the people that actually know me. But as we were talking about actual sources that you can read, Bon mentioned this earlier, Jane Elliott, Blue Eye, Brown Eye Experiment. You can Google that you can Google it and it'll pop up everywhere. It's a YouTube video. And the deal with that one is that you have to, I think you have to get through it. So if you're coming from my perspective, you can watch it all the way through and it will make sense. But then that brings me to the next book that you have to read probably before you get to Jane Elliott's, and that's called White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. And so those two sources are going to be great for you.
Thank you, Michael. Sylvia.
I have I have so many I want to recommend, but I think I'm going to recommend the newest one that I read, and it's Ibram Kendi's book, because it addresses somebody else's question, how to be an anti-racist. And if you really want to do that, it's a difficult book to read because this guy is really interesting. But it's a real informative book, how to be an anti-racist. Ibram Kendi is the name.
Thank you, Sylvia. Michael.
Thank you. I have a couple. First of all, for everybody that wants to get the quick gist on systemic racism, go to YouTube and search for Race in America and listen to Phil Visser, and he gives you a good 18-minute everything about systemic racism. It's awesome. And then I would suggest that everybody read The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. And that'll give you a good idea of how, a good idea about mass incarceration, about a lot of things around systemic racism in today's age. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Mel.
Thank you. I was hoping that, if there was a book, that there'd be 10 million editions and that everybody would read it. But I know what I was talking about and what I'm hoping for is the establishment of a relationship. And then maybe through that relationship, everybody can read the book. But certainly, as we talk about sitting down and reading a book, the book is still a very, very powerful tool to learn about people's past experiences. I still want to come back to the relationship of establishing that in your community and talking, not reading, but talking to a Black person or a Black person talking to a white person about the problems that they're seeing in their community and coming up with solutions to solve those problems and asking each other for help.
Hey, really quick to piggyback off of what Mel just said, I do think some of these books will open up the first part of your slide, Mel, is getting to know yourself before you get to know others. And so some of these books, a lot of these books, they're written by white people to try to open up white people's eyes to white people before they can even have the motivation to go talk to a Black person or build a relationship to a Black person. So if you have Black people that's close to you, I would definitely start there. If you don't have anywhere else to start by what you do, because I know there's a lot of educated people on these calls. Read, research, and then wherever you are in your journey, start there. It's my advice.
So, Wade,
Yes.
since I have a Wade privilege, I can't get by without mentioning this is an old book, but everybody should have read it. It's Beloved by Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison is the woman who got the Nobel Peace Prize, and this book was written a long time ago. But you should read Beloved.
And Wade, really quick, I agree with Michael and Mel and all of us here. We need to spend more time with Black people. If we spend more time cross-culturally and learn from individual people, that is very important. Some of these books, though, are also very important in that they will teach you things that your personal relationships won't teach you. They will teach you facts about history. They'll teach you about things that you should have learned in school, but you didn't. And so I would suggest that, yes, please go spend time with Black people, but also read about the history of Black people. Thank you.
Great. Our next question is going to be for Bon and Sylvia.
Okay.
What is the best way to start a conversation with a person of color or a different culture, which is why I picked both of you, without seeming patronizing?
You want me to answer?
Yes, I would love a quick answer from both you and Bon on this one.
Okay, to start a conversation, I learned a lot of things. I learned, when Mel said you have to look at yourself first, I looked at myself first. That's the first thing. And I'm going to give a talk, I think, Friday about some of my experiences there. But looking at myself and finding out what my concerns were, what my problems were, what I had learned, what I believed that I shouldn't have believed, how I could change it. And talking to people so they don't believe, there's nothing that says, Mel talks about how to be culturally competent. There's nothing that says Black people are all culturally competent. They're not. And we need to acknowledge that because we have a lot to learn and a long way to go.
I think what Sylvia just said makes a whole lot of sense. Maybe, Tina, you just start by first simply. You just smile at the person. It goes a lot of way to break down the barriers. I came into America in 1980. I believe there was one of the first Black rap artists called Grandmaster Flash. In his song, there was a lyric saying, "A child is born blind to the ways of mankind," which means regardless of your color of skin, you just don't have any problem with anybody. So if you just smile, talk to them, say hello, the conversation starts. And if you look at little kids, how they react to people, they don't have any barriers. They started withdrawing when they learned that experience because their parents keep them away from or don't. So I think if you just smile and then just open up, just wanting to do it, especially since you're coming out from this racially sensitivity presentation and you want to make that effort. So we can be just like us Black, opening up to the people of different races. And you might find out that your neighbor was white, eat the same kind of stuff you do eat. And then you can build from there. I believe in talking I believe in meeting people. Uh, that that would not sound patronizing than trying to tell them you must go learn about this, you got to go here, and so forth. So my suggestion would simply be smile and just try to strike up a conversation.
Great. That's going to be a great segue for Mel and Michael B. for this next question. It says, can the panelists perhaps give a concrete example of the change they hope individuals will enact once they become culturally aware, sensitive, woke? How do workers in fields other than education enter such conversation?
You want to go first,
I
Mike?
think,
Okay, I'm sorry.
yeah, just a quick comment. Thanks, Mel. I think the best outcome is, like I said, walking beside us. In other words, realizing the additional effort it takes to be successful for people like us, and then proactively asking, how do we make it better? I'm on a task force with the city of San Luis Obispo to tackle this exact question within the city, right? And I think that people, after educating themselves, after really coming and wanting to be an ally, it's about proactivity. It's about, let's get this done. It's about moving forward with us.
Okay, Tina, Mike, you finished?
Yep.
Okay. Tina, that seemed like that was a two-part question. Can you read that one more time for me, please?
Can the panelists perhaps give a concrete example of the change they hope individuals will enact once they become culturally aware, sensitive, woke? How do workers in fields other than education enter such conversation?
Well, it's more importantly to start off with how you feel. That's the promotion. Is how do you feel? How do you feel when you walk up to someone and as Mike brought up, or the approach that someone takes, and you have a general conversation with them, and they leave your conversation smiling. There is an innate ability that may be latent, but there's an innate ability for you to carry on a general conversation with just about anybody. It's just a matter of nurturing that and in practice, number one. And I firmly believe there isn't anything, if somebody's walking up State Street, for example, there isn't anything that a person on the opposite side of the street is doing that would make you frown, unless they're doing something, crime or whatever, or being belligerent. But I'm just talking about just walking. And if they cross the street at the intersection, and there's nothing wrong with you just saying hello to them and speaking to them. It's just general conversation, but it's important that you started a conversation. That would be the initiation of what we hope to gather in part of a relationship. I mean, you probably, I don't know, without getting too specific, in your strongest relationships that you have with people in your family, if it's somebody that you married or somebody that you're holding hands with, you start off with a smile and a general and a hello. There's basic steps that we all know about. It's just taking the willingness to move forward with that initiation.
Great, thank you for that. I appreciate it. This next question is for Michael, as he is a Rotarian. And it says, thank you, James, for asking. It says, I've been involved in Rotary Youth Exchange for over 30 years. Why do we do such a poor job in recruiting Black and Brown students to go on exchange?
Well, so I'm relatively new to Rotary, but we do have like our Rotaract clubs. And I specifically got on that task force because to put kids in the pipeline, right? I mean, that's kind of what you want. I never knew about Rotary until the old white guy from my job took me to lunch. That's how it started for me. But then I instantly realized Rotary was family. Like, it was a place where I needed to be. Like all the steps that I've taken have brought me to Rotary. And so the only way that you can do that is if you have people in Rotary, honestly, that resemble their community. And that's part of the making Rotary look like their community, be more diverse and et cetera, because you bring the old white guys to the high school or to the college, it's going to be hard to recruit those kids and get them in a pipeline to even want to become Rotarians. But if you put young Black men, athletes, in front of them, it's going to have a different pull factor, so to speak. So that's kind of where I think we start.
That's a great point. Bon, did you want to touch on something real quick?
Basically, the primary reason there are not that many Black Rotarians. And if you don't have the Black Rotarians, you can't reach out to Black kids either to go to even what do we call RILA, the youth leadership program that Rotary has. So we need to recruit more Black Rotarians. And then we have to actively go recruit Black kids. You got to be a conscious decision for every Rotary club, regardless whether they have a Black Rotarian or not, to consciously say, we want to involve people of different races in our exchange program. And then they themselves can develop the program, the outreach program, to non-white schools of how to go actively recruit, even if they have to use a hub of Black who are not Rotarians to go do so.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions that we're going to get to tonight, so we'll do our best here. This next one's for Tom, and it says, what do you see the next steps being to overcome systematic racism?
Wow, that's a good question. My perspective on it, much of the racism that I see and I've encountered come through institutions. We focused on education. Police is another institution. The legal system's another institution. I can name others. Healthcare, the one I work in, is another institution. To combat racism in institutions needs to be done from the inside out. So you need to you need to hire Black people, you need to hire other minorities that can relate to Black people in these institutions and leadership roles, so then they can start to change some of the policies that are racist. Because remember, it's not so much the people, it's the policies, the racist policies that are issues. But the people can change the policies. So you need to put the right people in leadership in these different institutions that can make the changes, and then also be present. Being present, right? Like actually having Black people within the institution brings hope, right? To other Blacks that they can get there themselves.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. And I know a few people have asked a little bit about what is Rotary doing, what specifically is our district doing. So Deborah is on the line, and I'm not sure if Eric's going to maybe introduce her, but she's going to touch on that for the last 1 minute or so. So if there's an introduction happening, we can do that. If not, Deborah, thank you for being on this call this evening and being willing to answer, to let us know what is our district Rotary doing to solve some of these issues.
Thank you. Thanks, Tina. Well, Wade, we talked about having you introduce Deborah, so why don't you go ahead?
Real quick, first of all, I want to comment on equities and inequities. We had, working with Tina, I feel a little bit having a lack of equity there because she's younger, better looking, and a lot smarter than me. So we have to reverse this order sometime in the future. I'd like to introduce Deb Linden. She's our governor, and she's from the Rotary Club of San Luis Obispo. I've known her for quite a while. Excellent lady. She's doing an outstanding job. Thank you for doing all you're doing, Deb.
Thank you, Wade. First of all, I'd like to start out by thanking our amazing panelists and Wade, amazing moderator, and Tina, our absolute superhero of the call tonight, and the Santa Barbara clubs for organizing this really important event. I am Jewish. I'm a first-generation Jew here in the United States, so this is a subject that is very personal and very important to me as well. I especially want to thank everybody who attended tonight for taking the time and the willingness to listen, to learn, and to appreciate the experiences and ideas from other people and those experiences that are different from our own. I want to reaffirm Rotary's commitment and the district's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and working with our clubs to ensure that they're open and welcoming places to everybody. But remember, the clubs are not the ones who recruit members to them. Members recruit members. So if you want your club to be more diverse, if you want your club to better reflect your community, you're the one who has to act. It's not the club that does it. It's all of us that do it, and it's every member that is responsible for that. This is not easy work. Being willing to honestly look inward and examine our own perceptions and biases it never is. It's never easy work, but it's really important work that we all need to do, and our own four-way test can help guide us in these efforts. Our board just discussed this last Friday, and we will be forming a district-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. We don't know the details yet. We don't know what it'll look like or how it will run, but we know that many other districts are doing the same, so we know that there's some fantastic ideas out there already that we can work with fellow districts with. Making diversity, equity, and inclusion a priority is all of our responsibilities. And I really want to emphasize that. You can't look to the district, you can't look to your club, you need to look inward, and we all need to do our part. So thank you for being here tonight. And Eric, thank you very much for hosting us.
Okay, thank you, Deb. I am now going to hand it over to Eric. Again, Eric, thank you for putting this together. Outstanding job. I'm going to let you close because you could go ahead and thank all the people that are in your staff.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank you. You did a great job, Wade. And again, I wanted to thank Scott Burns for really making this a program and standing behind it and recruiting all of you to be part of it. Of course, all the panelists who did a great job tonight, and I loved the personal backgrounds of each of you, and there were a lot of hours leading up to this event of preparing how this would go tonight, and couldn't be more happy with the way it went. And in the course of that, meeting the panelists was a fantastic experience for us. And again, Tina, thank you. Deb, thank you for being here. And I'm really excited about that new proposal for the district. Thank you, everybody.